Hello, welcome back. My name is Thomas Mihok, and I'm here to show you guys a little bit about timelines and general basic animations you can do with assets. We are going to be building off of our knowledge from the first video of this series. I'm going to highly recommend that you guys go and watch it today. If you're interested, please stick along, give me a like, give me a comment to let me know what you think of the video. Without further ado, let us show you what we're going to be doing today. So, we have a trigger box. If we leave that trigger box, I want to be able to see, oops, sorry. That's going to be a little an issue there with the project I'm creating. But essentially, come into this trigger box and you head out, we want to be able to play a little animation. Wow, blunder right away from minute one. Alrighty, so let's get right into it. How can we do that without obviously this pickup system right here? We're just simply seeing if we enter a trigger box, let's trigger a simple animation. Fancy intro. Ba-doop, ba-doop, boop, 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 boop. Alrighty, so what are we going to need to jump right into this tutorial today? You're going to need Unreal Engine 5. I do not have experience with other game engines, and I cannot say for sure exactly what you're going to be looking at if you're trying to follow along and understand these types of concepts on different game engines. Once you have Unreal Engine 5, you can just have the base starter kit. You might see we have a bunch of fancy assets around here, but that is not going to be specific to this tutorial. This tutorial you can do with any asset, any door, any light. There's going to be so many uses for timelines, and I'm not going to be able to describe them all very eloquently inside of this video, but I will be posting more resources down in the comment or down in the description. Same with part one of this series. So, physically, what are we going to need? Well, we're going to need a trigger box, and we're also going to need an actor. Trigger boxes are the most simple. We've already worked with those. Let's remind you guys quickly where to find those guys. You can add trigger boxes very easily into your project by going to this menu up here and looking up trigger. Today we're going to be using a trigger sphere. Make it nice and big for our purposes today. And if you're wondering how I'm going between all these menus, I'm just pressing space while clicking on the actor. I don't know if I explained that in my first video. Very helpful tool if you have not already used it. Alright, secondly, we're going to need the actor itself. This is where the beef cake of the video comes in. So, what I want you guys to do is I want you to make an empty folder. Let's call this 410 tutorial 2. Beautiful. Open that empty folder, right click into that empty folder, and click on Blueprint class. We're going to want to create an actor today. There are many options for you to create and how to manipulate blueprints. Actor is all we're going to need to start off. We're going to name this actor Door 2. And let's go into the actor. Let's open it up. Okay, nothing. That's okay. How we change this nothing into looking more like the door I showed you in the beginning of the video is we're going to need to add a static mesh. How we add a static mesh? Make sure you have the component tab open. If you don't, go under the Windows tab and find it. Next, go to the add button, look up static mesh. Beautiful. Here, once you look up static, sorry, I clicked on that a little fast just for people who are still following along. Static, it will usually pop up under rendering. We're going to name this static mesh whatever we'd like. We're going to name this door. Nice and simple, nice and bland. And you're still going to see nothing. That's okay. That's because we need to attach an asset to that static mesh to tell it what we should be looking at. So let's go over to the right side under details. Look. Go down to static mesh, click on the list, and click door. Sorry for that quick pause there. Yawning. So, a little tired right now, but we're getting through it. Now, I already know what this door is going to look like in my world, so I'm going to scale it appropriately. But if you're not sure how your asset's going to look in the world when you're manipulating it inside of this menu, go to your world, hit Control Space to open up the content menu, just drag it in, and you can see exactly what they're going to look like. Alrighty. So once you know what it looks like and you like the current view, we're going to start adding the code for it. First step, we're going to need to create an interaction with the level. So we can either use one of those events they already have pre-made, or what I would rather do is I'm going to delete all of them and add a custom event. So you're going to right click, type in custom event, hit add custom event. We're going to call this puzzle check because this is going to be related to my personal project. You can call that whatever you would like. And then we're going to add in all of this code without explaining it at all. Maybe not. Alrighty, what's happening here? Give me 1 second. Run into some technical difficulties. I was trying to be funny, but that's what I get for trying to be funny. There we go. Okay. Uh, let's ignore this, and we're going to talk a little bit about that later. Seriously? Alrighty. Okay. Really not liking us today. Alrighty. So, we have our custom event on this side, and we have our code. I don't need to explain this code to you, because it's going to be project specific. This is a set of logic that I'm running to make sure that what I want to check multiple things inside of my level before I allow that door to open. For your purposes today, none of it's going to be used. Absolutely none. Once we have this custom event, we're going to say, okay, run some logic. In our case, that's going to look like a delay, just for our examples today. We're going to want this delay. I'm going to set mine to 1 second. And now we're going to need to create a second custom event. Call this door open 2. Alrighty. Now that we have this second event and we've run our logic, we're going to drag this over and call our second function door open 2, beautiful. And then for the meat and bones of what we're talking about today, we need to talk about timelines. So, how to add a timeline into your world. I'm going to right click, look up add timeline. Very simplistic right there. What's not simplistic is the actual timeline itself. So, it will, unlike other blocks, it's going to ask you to name it. That's because it's going to be running so many different functions in order to appropriately give you the output you're looking for. There are many different outputs and many different types to run it. Today, though, we're going to be running play, which is going to be saying from wherever it currently is, run from that point to where the end point is supposed to be. Obviously, play from start is, instead of that point, start at the start again and play until the end. Stop. Reverse is going to be similar to play, but it's going to be wherever you are, then reverse back to the starting point, then reverse from end is it's always going to teleport you back to the end of the transformation before it starts the door opening process. We're going to explain that a little more in depth in a future video possibly, but for today, we're going to keep it nice and simple. Name it whatever you like. I named mine opening door. And let's take a look into here, see what they look like. So, we're going to see a whole lot of mumbo jumbo. What's important to you guys are these tracks. When you add a track, you're going to have a color track, event track, vector track, and float track. What we're talking about today is a float track. If you'd like to see how other tracks work, like the vector track and color track, please reference the other resources I've linked down below. Vector track will almost never be used because the float track is doing something very similar, but instead you have to manage less lines. In a vector track, every time you create something, you're creating one for every single vector. So that's X, now you also have Y and Z. So that can get very messy very fast. I want you to click track, hit add float track, and now we have an empty graph. What this graph is representing is we have time on the x-axis and we have position in the y-axis. So we want to say we want 2 points. We're going to want to move from 0 seconds at whatever the current location is. So that'd be 0 in this case because it's relative location, not world location. We'll describe that in a minute. And then at time, let's say 5 seconds, and let's give it position 1. Position 1 is very methodical. We'll describe that in a little bit. First thing I want to just talk about though is that this is a very linear line. Unless you want your animation to look very linear, which is totally fine, you can leave it. If you'd like to change it, hit Control and click on both points. Then you're going to click on the right click on the mouse. You're going to open up the interpolations, which is how your space changes over time. We're going to say auto. It's going to give us a little curve, a little more texture inside the animation. If you'd like to add in even more texture, these points are more than available. Let's do user. Yeah, why not? Perfectly just for our example. So it's going to be super fast in the beginning, or it's going to be super slow in the beginning, and then much faster in this curve at the end for the total distance. So let's talk a little bit about what relative versus world location is. When I said relative location, I was referencing the location with this static mesh compared to the root actor. As you can see here, it says it's at 0, 0. Oh, it says it's at 0, 0, 0. We want that. So that way when we say, okay, we want you to move 150 ticks forward, we don't want to reference the world because it's going to think we want to go from point 0 in the world. We want to reference the actor, so point 0 at the actor. In the world, you can see its location is very much not at 0, 0, 0. But something else I'm going to point out while we're here, if you want to look over on this right side while I move the door, we can see exactly how much it changes over time depending on where we're moving it. If we want to move our door, let's say all the way over here, that's about 200, 200, and then 170, just about right. Actually, probably 300, 200, 170. We're being a little inaccurate here because we're simply just doing an example. But now that we are only going to location or distance 1, we're able to multiply that 1 by whatever factor we need in order to get the location we want if we're setting the relative location. And you know how you do that? You multiply. I mean, technically you could add 2, but multiplying instead is going to be, instead of teleporting your thing to a different location, it's going to be saying at any point in this graph, multiply it by that number, and then update that location in the world. So let's do X being 300, Y being 200, and Z being 170. Okay. Now we need to set the relative location. I've been saying that over and over again because setting relative location is literally the name of the block. Set relative location. You can see it's going to also reference different things. We're going to want to find the one that's referencing our door. if you can't find the one that's referencing your door, it's very easy to go to this left side here and drag a reference to the door into the world, or into your code. So we have relative location. All right, let's drag the different transformations, we'll call them, over to the vector. Uh-oh, it's only letting us do one right now. Okay, well, let's see what it does. So, if we bring update over to set relative location, we have a reference to the door. I guess we have a new vector. Let's see what it does. Hint, hint, there's going to be 2 issues. We're not there yet. Okay, 1 issue. Gosh, it's doing nothing. Oh, wait a second. Did I do anything with this sphere? I didn't. So, make sure you open up that level, the level blueprint. And just like we did last time, we're going to click on whatever actor we need, call a reference to the actor begin overlap, and then also, when we want to call a function inside of a blueprint that's connected to an actor, we need to specifically reference that actor. So click on it, create a reference to that actor, and do door open 2. There we go. I will point out, if we just do this and look up door open, it's not going to come up. So, once we have referenced that actor, a reference to that function as well, let's try her one more time. Okay, it is not going to the right location, but we're getting there. We're getting there, step by step. Notice how it only went in kind of one direction from its starting point, not in the kind of upwards location over here that we were expecting. Well, I'm assuming you could tell by my silly tone, that's because we're only accessing this 300 transformation and it's converting it to a vector right here. We don't want that. We want to split this up, so we want to go over here and right click and split it up so we can access 3 different points in order to transform it in however way we want. Let's go into here, play again. Oh, don't believe it changed very much. Okay, we're gonna be doing some real-time debugging here by referencing door 2 open, referencing self. Okay, the 200 and 170 might just not be that effective. Let's delete these and see if it truly was just the 300 looked a little too much and we might need to change it a little bit. Ah, okay. So I figured out what we were looking at before, and this is going to be a great example to talk about. This is actually something I didn't know beforehand, and it's going to be, I don't know, generally probably positive for you guys to see. As you can see here, it just moved in one direction. I can almost guarantee you it moved in a single direction 300 ticks. Just about. That's just about 300 ticks there, if you're looking on the right side. So, what it does when it converts it to a vector is it's converting all the x, y, and z using this single number that we're getting from here when it converts it to a vector. Look at us debugging real time together. So, if my theory is correct, and we play from here, there we go. We get the first animation we ever looked at. So, let's change this up a little bit. We're going to make this negative. Delete the x and y, or here, let's go back. We're going to have all 3 references, but now we're going to go in the opposite location by doing negative 300 and then Let's keep Z the same so it doesn't go in wonky areas, and negative 200. So now, theoretically, it should go in the opposite direction. Bingo! Look at that. Look at how smart we are, guys. Give yourselves a high five. Give yourselves a pat on the back. Don't fall into the spike trap. Kind of rhymed. I don't know. I'm hilarious. Back to the point, though. Now that we got that done, that's cool and all. That's just about all I wanted to show you guys today. A little snippet or a little extra I can give you guys is we're going to do set relative rotation. It's going to get another reference to the door. Actually, we can delete this reference and just use this one. Okay. And now I want it to rotate in the z-axis while it's also changing its location. See that? See that? So essentially, a good way to describe the timeline is that as this runs, every single time this gets a new point on the graph, or every single tick while this animation is running, it's going to run all the code after it and update the actor it's connected to. In our case, it's the door. But because it's update just in general, we can call multiple things. So if we have multiple actors and we want to transform them in multiple ways, let's say we want to open a grand door, with 3 different huge parts to it, we can do that all at once. There's so much power that comes from a timeline, and I myself am very excited to get used to it and start using it more. Please ask any questions down in the comments. I'll try my best to answer, and I'll also link that other gentleman who went over these, and hopefully he can give you a great example as well. Thank you for coming to my tutorial. Hopefully you guys learned something today, and have a great day. Goodbye.